If they do that, the Cougars will be very, 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 very tough to beat.
Off the window, no. Roberts tried to get it. Shed for the win. Got it.
Just with 14 points, but you just look, the way that he dominated the game was in controlling the pace and making smart decision after decision.
Call them five slammer jam.
Go to pizza spot before or after.
The dream is alive for Houston. Go Cougs! Let's go!
Welcome into another edition of Let's Rage Coogs presented by the Saxenian Family. And we are coming off the heels of a lopsided beatdown between the 7th-ranked Houston Cougars and the Utah Utes. And Houston jumped out in front. They dominated from the get-go, and quite frankly, there wasn't really much drama in this game. The final score, the Cougars come out on top 70-36, and quite frankly, the score is actually a lot closer than most of the game was. A very strong, dominant performance by the Houston Cougars, both offensively and defensively, and they made a Utah team that came in averaging over 80 points a game, only turning the ball over just under 12 turnovers a game, and they made them look lost out there. But we'll get into the game specifics in a bit. Joining me tonight, Dayon Dunlap. Dayon, how you doing, sir? Dayon, can you hear me?
I'm having some connection issues all of a sudden. I'm not sure why. Am I still on?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I'm just having some connection issues. It's really choppy, so I'm not sure if you guys can hear me. But like you said, it was pretty much a lopsided win. This defense is impressive, man. I mean, we can't reiterate enough. We can't talk about it enough. But this may be the best defense this team I've seen, especially with Terrence in the star lineup. Gives them more length, more opportunities to more deflections to get out and steal. I believe they finished with 19 steals. Defensively, this team is dominant. I mean, just simply put, this defensively are dominant.
Yeah, we'll get into the specifics and just the overall great performance offensively as well. Houston had a lot of different strong performances throughout, but I mean, we start on defense. I mean, they held this Utah team to 17 points in the first half, 14 turnovers at halftime, which was more than they were averaging a game heading into this contest. They finished, looking at the finals numbers, Utah finished with 26 total turnovers, like you mentioned, Dayon. The steals that Houston had, 19. They were blocking shots left and right. The one aspect that Utah actually did really well in was rebounding, but I think, quite frankly, I mean, everything else was a lopsided domination in favor of Houston, and Utah tried. They tried to throw everything at the Cougars, see if something could stick, and Houston was just methodical, and they were really picking apart everything that Utah did, and defensively, they had the Utes in really lockdown the entire game. A whole bunch of different performances we could get into, whether it's Milos, LJ. They both had strong performances. Juwan Roberts continues his stellar play in conference play. And like you mentioned, Terrence Arsenal got the nod for Emmanuel Sharp, who sat out this game due to an ankle injury that he suffered during practice, was wearing a boot before the game or during the game. So it'd be interesting to see how Emmanuel Sharp's health status is going into Saturday when Houston has to travel up to play the Kansas Jayhawks at Allen Fieldhouse this upcoming Saturday. But take your pick. Who do you want to start with? Because especially everyone that started, they had phenomenal games in this one against Utah. You're muted there.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I mean, I would say let's start with LJ Choir. I mean, the senior, the captain came out on a heater, just as if the rest of the starting lineup did. And he was getting good looks, knocking them down. And he, along with the rest of the guys, kind of set the tone and really just pretty picked up where they left off in the first quarter. But quickly, but LJ got off to a really good start. He was really impressive, and as well as JoJo. I mean, he came out with great energy like he always does, getting steals. I think if I'm not mistaken, he led the team in steals. I know he had at least 4 or 5, but he was getting numerous deflections. And those two, in my opinion, really set the pace. Really with Milo's, really though, it's hard in starting five, the entire starting five. I mean, you pick your poison. Milo's probably was his best game the way he's played this season.
Yeah, you are right. Joseph Tugler led the team with steals. He finished with 4, but Jawan Roberts, Terrence Archibald right behind him. They had 3 apiece, and really top to bottom, Javier Francis had two steals. Cordell Jefferson got one. Milo Zuzan had one. And then when we're talking about Milo Zuzan, I agree with you, Dan. I think this is much, you could arguably say his much more complete game that he's had with Houston so far early, and he did in limited stretches. He just seemed comfortable whenever the shot was there. Wasn't hesitating when he was open. He released it, and more often than not, it went through. And then also being able to be patient. Again, like I mentioned earlier, there was a lot of different defenses that Utah threw at them. At one point, they even ran a diamond and one trying to get the ball away from Milo Zuzan, and Houston was still able to effectively pick apart whatever defense the Utes found themselves in. But Milo Zuzan finished with 14 points, 5 assists. He did have 1 turnover during a miscommunication, and I believe it was in the first half between RJ Cryer and Mercy Miller. It seemed like they both cut in the same space. The spacing was off, led to that turnover, but overall, no complaints. Like Milo Zuzan had a solid game, 6 of 9 shooting from the field. And like you said, I think this is arguably the most comfortable that he's looked out there so far, and it's continuing to become a trend because we've said that more often than not recently over the course of the last few games. Like, hey, this is the more comfortable he's looked. Now against Utah, this is once again the more comfortable he's looked. That's obviously the trend that Houston wants to continue to see as they get closer to March. And now the big test is upcoming against Kansas, but so far so good in these first 7 conference games for Houston, and specifically with Milos.
Yeah, I mean, definitely with Milos. I mean, like you said, we've said that he seems more and more comfortable today. It's probably the most comfortable I've seen, and it looks like he was ready to step up with Emmanuel out. It looked like he was a little bit more aggressive, looking for more shots, getting inside the paint, and just pretty much allowing the game to come to him. And he was ready. I mean, I really like what I've seen for him overall today. I mean, his defense, the way that he was getting deflections. I know he only had 1 steal, but just his length, his ability to guard on ball was really impressive today. And his assist to turnover ratio. I mean, 5 assists, 1 turnover. That's what you need from your point guard, especially in this system. Houston um, wants that point guard to handle the ball almost 80, 90% of the time. And so was kind of surprised when I saw them run a boxing one. It just shocked me. Not surprised because I understand the logic behind it with Houston point guard being so ball dominant and trying to keep him out and make others initiate the offense, especially when LJ wasn't on the floor. So I wonder if something teams might look at and try to implement during some of those moments. But Milos is playing really, really good. It looks like he's definitely settled in and knows his role and knows what's expected of him.
Yeah, I agree with you, Dan. I think it was definitely an interesting decision by Utah to run that defense, and I think it was during the stretch when both Terrence and Malik Wilson were on the court along with Milo. So, yeah, it could be something that teams try to kind of dare Houston, or at least when it comes to Malik and Terrence, to have to beat them, have those two be the ones that beat them. I can't remember who were the bigs that were on the floor. I think Jawan Roberts was one. It might have been JV or JoJo that was the other, but great point. It'd be interesting to see if other teams employ that. But when Emmanuel comes back and they have the full plethora of shooters, it's just really hard to it's a gamble if opposing teams do that. So I think it'd be interesting. It was just a matter of the players that were on the court for Houston. But on the topic of Terrence Arsenal, like you said earlier, Dayon, definitely had a very strong, solid performance in this game where he got the starting nod in lieu of Emmanuel Sharper. Like I said, was out with an injury. He had 10 points, 4 of 10 shooting, not necessarily eye-popping numbers from the field, but overall he had a really solid game. He had 6 rebounds, 3 assists himself. He had 4 blocks, only a turnover. He was really active, just all around a really, really strong performance from Terrence in that starting role that he got called upon against Utah.
I wonder how many deflections he's had. I know that's not a stat that the box score tracks, but the coaching staff does. But he also played a season high 33 minutes, the most minutes on the team here today. So I'm assuming his minutes restriction is gone and he's feeling fully healthy. And he was out there really causing havoc on the defensive end. Just his length, his activity, his athletic ability to be able to get in those pass lanes. And then the blocks you mentioned. I mean, as a wing player, getting 4 blocks is really, really impressive. With him and Wilson on the court together, who had 5 steals, I mean, they were really an entire team, but those two specifically were really had Utah guards and whoever they were guarding in handcuffs. I mean, they were really um, getting a lot of steals. And Malik, I mean, he's played really well. But Terrence, I like what I've seen from him. I think Coach Sampson will really want him to play this extended minutes, potentially to see what's in store for Emmanuel if he plays or if he down with a precaution, because there's a lot more season left. Terrence will be asked to step up and do what's expected of him to fill that role and to produce.
Real quickly, because first, thank every person that's joining us live on either X, YouTube, whether it be the Houston Roundball Review or on the Potsdam Jamma YouTube channels. We have quite a few comments that we're going to get to in a bit. Hopefully, everybody stayed warm if they're in the Houston area after the unseasonal snowfall that took place yesterday on Tuesday, that actually forced the delay of this game. Supposed to be originally played on Tuesday night, got pushed to today, Wednesday, that we're recording this. So a big thank you to everyone that's commenting on the show. We'll get to those comments in a second. Of course, we also like to say thank you to today's primary sponsor for Let's Rage Coogs, and that is Steve Saxenian, who is the primary sponsor not only of today's episode, but each and every single regular season post-game show of LRC throughout the remainder of the men's basketball regular season. Of course, we also like to say thank you to today's secondary sponsor, and that is Star Pizza, who has 3 different locations throughout the Houston area. Be sure to check them out online at starpizza.net or on social media at starpizza.HRU on their X platform, or Star Pizza Houston, Texas on Instagram. They actually had a good deal for the students in today's game against Utah. Every student in the student section today got fed Star Pizza prior to the game against Utah, and shoot, they might be doing it more often if Houston's dominating opponents like they did tonight against Utah. Getting back to the game, I do want to bring up this comment that I saw. I lost it. I had just seen it about Emmanuel Sharp, which was a good point. It was Michael Jones on YouTube. He said Sharp has been wearing a boot because he had Michael Jones said he read about him nursing a black and blue, but that is true. Kelvin Sampson said it about two weeks ago, that they put him in a boot. Might be 3 weeks ago. They put him in a boot just because he's been dealing with that injury over the course of multiple weeks. So it'd be interesting to see if maybe he re-aggravated that during practice. And the phrase Kelvin Sampson said originally when he brought it up those weeks ago was that they put him in a boot so that it could promote healing. So hopefully it's a similar instance for Emmanuel Sharp tonight, and it's not necessarily anything more serious. Crabtree going on about Milo Souza, and he said he's playing better. So good to see. Terrence Arsenal with 6 rebounds, 4 blocks, one of his best games too. And Crabtree also mentioned a performance from Malik Wilson with 7 rebounds. There seems to be a lot of comfortness, a lot of high comfort level among multiple Houston Cougars as they get into the grind of the Big 12 conference play. They're about to get into in the middle of conference play now that they've played 7 games. They're about to enter the 8th game against Kansas, so that's obviously another good thing that Houston wants to see. One of the other players that I want to touch on that had a really good game, especially in the first half, and showed a lot of different things, was Javier Francis, who continues to have his ascension, and he continues to look really good, for lack of a better phrase. He had a move in the first half where he caught it in the paint post. He drove, had an up and under. The Utah defender went flying, and he finished with touch. And I think the most encouraging thing for Houston is that Javier Francis looks like he's getting his quickness, his burst of speed back. And that's something that, again, Houston's going to really, really need as they continue to go through conference play. And most importantly for Houston, where they want to go at the end of the season, and that's obviously make a deep run in March.
Yeah, back to back, really good games for him. And I mean, he's really a six starter. I mean, watching him play, if it wasn't someone as talented and as impactful as JoJo in front of him, it'd be hard to keep him off the floor. But I think, in my opinion, what separates him from JoJo, I think JoJo may have a little bit more athleticism than Javier, but the length is the same, shot blocking is the same, rebounding is probably pretty much the same as well. But I think Javier is a little better finishing around the rim. I mean, offensively, especially on the low post, you could throw it to him, and you can count on him to make a confident move and an effective move to be able to score on the block. And so when he's playing the way that he is, I would like to see him to get a little bit more minutes because offensively, I mean, I know when J1's on the floor, he's pretty much the low post player and low post scoring threat, and they don't really throw it to JVR that much when J1's on the floor. But I would love to see JVR get a little bit more touches. But it's a good problem to have. It's a plethora
Yeah.
of good players who do the things that they can do, and just you never know where the season may turn. The season may turn to what could happen. But I mean, when his number is called, he's ready. He's playing like an upperclassman and he's playing well. I think the broadcast did a good job of explaining Malik, and when they said that last year he was often play, rushing, playing too fast, and out of control, and you don't see that. And I think the same. I don't want to say the same thing, but Javier, he's slowed down. He's playing um, in his own pace and confident, and he's making the right plays, and he's really the game seems like it slowed down for him. I know Coach Sampson and
Yeah.
staff last year said that he needed the playing time, and they got him the playing time. That's why they didn't go get a big. But now I think he's putting it all together, and he's really ready to take that next step.
Yeah, to your point, Javier Francis in this game definitely showed off his post moves, but he definitely showed up his touch not only in that move that I described, but he had another where
Hmm.
very comfortable, made his move, scored it off the glass, and like you said, it just looked like it looks like he's found his pace. He's found really the move where the spots that he wants to get to. It never seems like he's rushed, at least the last two games, which wasn't necessarily the case at the beginning of the season, where you could kind of tell whether it was he's still trying to find his rhythm after being sidelined for almost a month right before the season began. So again, that's something that Houston really has got to love, that they're seeing Javier Francis get more comfortable as the season progresses. To your point about Malik Wilson, man, he's the one player that it looks like he's never rushed. And what's really underrated about Malik Wilson is that it seems like he can get to the rim whenever he wants to. Like he is his ability to drive and get a decent look, regardless of whether the shot clock is winding down or if it's just early on a drive. Malik Wilson's ability to get all the way to the cup is definitely underrated, and it's something that he excels and does really well. And I mean, it's really underrated that he's been able to showcase over really the course of the entire season.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, Malik is playing under control. He's playing, making decisive decisions, and he's getting to his spots. I mean, whether it's driving, like you said, we talked about this. I believe it was either the A&M game or it may have been the Auburn game, where his mindset and other players, I can't remember exactly which game was, but the way he came and his approach to the game, he was ready. And now, fast forwarded to now. I mean, he knows he can. He had probably the best player with the ball in his hands to get downhill. He's getting downhill. He's getting to his mid range, and there's no hesitation. I mean, it was often in times he seemed like he was playing, looking over his shoulder. Now he's playing freely. He's playing fast, and he's playing smart. I think that's the big key. No turn, not many turnovers, if any, and he's definitely a trustable player on the court. You earn that trust, and now case if something comes up, foul trouble or anything like that, I think Coach Sampson will have trust playing him extended minutes, if need be.
Yeah, for sure. Malik Wilson's somebody that's definitely taken advantage out of the opportunity, and really what it's kind of become consistent with him is that that he's going to get you at least 4 or 5 rebounds minimum when he's
Mhm.
out there. And obviously, of course, his ability to play defense and underrated, really. playmaker. He showcased in this game. He had 4 assists for the Cougars and didn't turn the ball over at all. So that's something that's definitely something that Houston could definitely use just to rest minutes and stretches that Milo Zuzan needs in the foreseeable future. If you never know, if foul trouble arises, they can feel a little bit more confident about Malik Wilson being ready and kind of being able to plug and play when needed in the future. Now, one of the other players that really showed, because there was a lot of players that got playing time in this game, and a lot of players that don't necessarily get usual minutes got a chance to really highlight and showcase what they can do. Obviously, the big name that everybody's gonna want to see is Mercy Miller, who really showcased his ability to get to the line. And I mean, Utah gave a lot of help with some of the fouls that they were taking, but Mercy Miller racked up 7 points. Didn't hit a field goal, but went 7 of 8 from the free throw line in 18 minutes. I think one of the players that really showcased what he can do was Cedric Lott, who finished with 5 rebounds in 14 minutes and really was out there. His presence was known when he was out there on the floor because
Or
he was
those was
battling up
offensive
there.
rebounds too.
Yep, he was battling. Yeah, that's a great point. 4 offensive rebounds for Lott. And when he was out there, he was battling with the big men of Utah, which the ESPN stream, the broadcast after the game, definitely pointed out how lengthy and how much size that the Utes had. That's kind of like the advantage that was being touted coming into the matchup. And yeah, Cedric Lott was earning his minutes going out there and really battling against Utah's bigs.
Yeah, it said a lot. 4 offensive rebounds, 1 defensive rebound, but when the ball was on the rim, it was his. It wasn't it wasn't no 50-50. He was going to get it. And he looked like a man possessed to getting rebounds. Even showed his rim protection. But another player that you mentioned was Mercy. I see some of the comments, and one of them, um, this one right here, we bring up his pressure score. Yes, his drive will come. What has repetition continue wide open threes. But I think this one is spot on. I think it's the rhythm. I think he isn't playing inconsistent minutes. And then when he gets in, it's you can tell. Well, I can, in my opinion, it seems as if he isn't. He just looking to run the offense versus having the offense ran for him, putting him in position for him to look to score. I mean, there are opportunities with the ball swung to him. He catch some open shots, but it's not much giving him the ball and putting him in the pick and roll action where it's a play designed for him to show off his offensive repertoire in his offensive game. But as more time comes, I mean, he'll be ready in years to come, no question.
Yeah, he's in a tough position, not necessarily having a set role where he's getting consistent minutes. It's the most minutes he's had in a long time. So that's definitely something that, we know for a fact that he's not used to just in terms of coming out of high school, the level of consistency and the amount of minutes and what he was asked to do. With his teams prior to coming to Houston, it's definitely, I'd imagine, has to be an adjustment period for him. But well, like I said, the one thing we know and he showcased throughout the season earlier in the year is he does have the ability. He's going to find a way to get on the score sheet. He can put the ball in a basket in a variety of ways. And even though he went 0 for 5 from the field, I think it's still something that was showcased by his ability to still get 7 points by getting to the free throw line. Real quickly before we continue to talk, I'd like to take another pause and once again take the opportunity to shout out our primary sponsor on today's edition of Let's Rage Coogs, and that is Mr. Steve Saxenian. Big thank you to him for being a primary sponsor of not only today's edition of Let's Rage Coogs, but each and every single post-game show throughout the regular season. Of course, we also like to say thank you to today's secondary sponsor, and that is Star Pizza with 3 locations throughout the Houston area. Star Pizza is your go-to stop before or after the game, or if you were the students at today's game, during the game. And of course, be sure to visit them online at starpizza.net or on social media at starpizza.hou or on Instagram at starpizza Houston, Texas. Be sure to check them out on Tuesdays and Fridays during lunchtime for their all-you-can-eat pizza buffet. And next time you stop by any of their locations, tell them you heard about them on Let's Rage Coogs. Looking at more of the comments, Kevin Hancock says another dominant Big 12 win. Nice to see Terrence start and have an all-around strong game. Once again, Houston held this Utah team that came into the outing averaging over 80 points a game to just 17 points in the first half. And for a good stretch in that second half, Utah was stuck it took them over 7 minutes, I believe, in the second half for them to get their first points in that period. And for the longest time, they were stuck in the 20s until towards the latter half of that second half. They were able to kind of accumulate more points and get up to the respectable. I mean, get up to 36 points, which is still 20 points fewer than their previous low mark in the season. Before this game, the fewest points that they had scored was 56 points, and Houston broke that record by over 20 points that Utah did coming into this season. This is another point by EI Crabtree. He says, don't forget LJ. His consistency this season has been incredible. LJ Cryer today from the floor, 13 points, 4 of 7 shooting, 3 of 4 on threes, had an assist, had a rebound. I mean, that's a great point. For more often than not, I would say the exception of the 2 out of the 3 tournament games in Las Vegas, LJ Cryer has been Mr. Reliable. Like he's
He definitely has, and I think a big key to that is the extension of Malik Wilson, and also the comfortability of Los. I think with those two, LJ can stay in his strength, in which is playing off ball and being a player that can catch and shoot. That's his strength. And when you have Los on the court, now it's settled in. Then you have Malik playing the way he is. This allows LJ to stay in his role and be consistent in that. And when he has open looks like the way he's getting, he's one of the best shooters, not only in college basketball, but pretty much in the country, in the world. His catch and shoot, he can shoot with the best of them. And staying in that role and now having ball him to not I don't want to say force him, but put him in a position where he has to handle the ball and he has to initiate the offense, then he could be more comfortable in the role that he's used to being in. And that's off ball, being someone that can catch and shoot and space the floor, but also just attacking closeouts. I think that's his next level of game, in which we've talked about plenty of times, but he's definitely has been Mr. Reliable. He's been consistent. And I would like to, and he's looked very comfortable and confident as he always does. But um, LJ definitely has been the captain, man. From here on out from the season, I might just refer to LJ as the captain because that's how he's been playing. He's been leading this team with consistency, with his play, like a captain should. Can't hear you, Andy. While Andy
Tom, we're
fixed
having some
his
technical
mic. Oh,
difficulties.
there you go.
Yeah,
I can hear you.
yeah. All right. Not sure what's going on today. I guess we're having technical difficulties on our end on StreamYard. What I was gonna say was one of the things that LJ Carr did really well in today's game was just being able to get to the spots. Really active when he was coming off screens, kind of getting to his sweet spots, pulling up, rising up for shots when he was open for threes. When he has his feet set, he has such a pretty release that it looks like every time that he shoots the ball and he's set, um, you just think it's gonna go in with just the good form that he has, and that's a great point that you alluded to, Dayon, just in terms of really how again it kind of goes hand in hand. It connects right with the comfort level that Milo Zuzan has had over the course of the last few games. Uh, really seems like he has a good not only comfort level with what he's being asked, but also kind of knowing what are the strengths and setting up his teammates. And LJ Cryer being one of the main benefactors of that has really allowed LJ to kind of focus on his role. And it's kind of interesting when uh, you see the score, the box score, LJ Cryer's role is set. He's in there. They need him to just attack
Mhm.
and look to score. and I'd imagine it's definitely something that's kind of easy for him. We mentioned it with Mercy Miller, right? Not having a set role. It hurts Mercy Miller a bit. For LJ Cross, the flip side, he knows his role. He knows what's expected of him night in and night out. And that's to score for Houston, play really good defense on the other end. And he for the past year and a half now that he's been here with Houston, he's gotten comfortable with that. And games like today, where granted this game was over by, I would say you could say the game was over before halftime. It's really nice to see just an all around performance where I mean, he had a good shooting night, and now a big test is going to come. I want to see how they look in Kansas at Allen Fieldhouse, a place where they lost last year, and really, it's curious to see how they look in that hostile environment. And really, these next two
And how
games
they
are going to be
start.
big tests for Houston. Yeah, that's key because last year they did not get off to a good start against Kansas, and
Mm-mm.
they were trying to fight an uphill battle the rest of the way. They had a rally. They had a rally, but then Kansas was able to overcome it. And really, I mean, Houston was never really in that game a year ago.
Yeah, no, definitely agree. I definitely agree. And that's why I mentioned the start. I'll be looking to see if they can get off to a fast start. And kind of just going back to the LJ point, just thinking about today game, I can't remember again if it was either A&M or Auburn when he took 26 shots. But watching the game, it wasn't like he was ball hogging. It was just by necessity. He needed to step up. He needed to have the ball in his hands. He needed to take those shots. Now, kind of fast forward to now, the way Milos is playing and then Malik is playing, he's kind of going back to his normal role and not having to exude so much energy trying to get his shot versus letting the ball come to him and letting the game and his shots come to him and taking them when he gets this opportunity. And I think that's really key. But I'm looking forward to it. I think the captain definitely needs to set the tone in Allen Fieldhouse. He's been there numerous of times from his time at Baylor to last year. And so this is the game that I think it'll be a good game for him to really set the pace. Him and Jaywan. I think those two players. I mean, I got to put Jaywan right there too because he's been playing like a first team all conference player, almost like a conference, a Big 12 player of the year the way he's played so far. So those two, in my opinion, really need to set the tone um, against Kansas.
Most definitely, especially to your point about Jawan, especially since conference play has started, he's definitely been playing at that all conference level for Houston, and that's a great point. And when we're looking at this Houston team, top to bottom, they have guys that have experience going in Allen Fieldhouse now, which wasn't necessarily the case a year ago, where it was the first time ever that they were playing in that environment. You could kind of tell, like you said, again, the rough start that they had in that game a year ago. That's not now. Overwhelming majority of the Cougars are going into. They know what to expect. Even Milos Uzan obviously didn't play for Houston last year, but he's been in the Big 12 conference before. He knows what to expect from Kansas and just playing in that kind of hostile environment. That's definitely going to be a big key for Houston to come out and be successful. To your point, Dayon, is starting out well and not getting themselves into too big of an early hole.
Oh, definitely. I mean, and let's touch upon this comment. I know we kind of talked about Terrence already, but he's definitely looking better and playing like himself every game. What do I think his ceiling is for the rest of the season? I don't think you can put a ceiling on Terrence because whether he starts in a starting lineup or Emmanuel returns, he comes back off the bench. He's one of those players that if he's feeling like himself and which he look like he is, he can have a stretch of games and turn into the sixth man of the year. Or if he's a starter, he can kind of be that Terrence that we saw on the road against Oregon his freshman year. And so I think you can't really, in my opinion, I can't put a ceiling on him because he's so talented, and I'm just waiting for it all to kind of click and him assert himself in a game and really believe that he's as good as that he is and can be. But I love what I'm seeing from him. I think he's definitely settling in. He doesn't play rushed. I want to see more consistent offensively from him. I think that's what I would like to see from him. Defensively, we know what he is. You know what he has to be. to be on the floor for Houston. But offensively, I want to see a little bit more consistently just to get into his spots, like we talked about with Malik. Get to your spots, get to the spots to where you know that you can pull the ball in the hole. And we saw it at time, a couple times here this season, but I want to see this the season continues.
Yeah, and something that we might see whenever he is on the floor, you might start seeing a lot of opposing teams kind of daring him to beat them. And in this game against Utah, they were kind of daring him to shoot throughout the game. That's going to be something that we probably start to see more frequent. And I mean, that's what teams will be willing to. They have to pick their poison. They're gonna pick that until Terrence can consistently show that, hey, either he can knock down the jumper or he can get, like you mentioned, and get to a spot and kill them that way. But that might be something that opposing teams start doing just to try to limit Houston's offense.
Yeah, and that I'm glad you mentioned that because I did notice, and the commentators did as well, that they were intentionally backing off of him on the 3-point line and trying to make him shoot it and so that he could beat them from there. When if you look at the percentage, you would like, okay, he's a really good shooter, but as coaches do, they watch plenty of tape, and I think the scouting report is and smartly would be on him to force him to take those outside shots because um, he's a mid-range player. He's such a player who can play
Mhm.
from the mid-range free throw line, 18 feet down, and get to those spots. That's where he wants to make his hay. And if he's making his three, then it's like icing on the cake. And so I think as he continues to see what the defense how playing at him, definitely want him to trust his three ball because he's shooting it really, really well. But if they're giving it to you, sometimes take it and trust it, but oftentimes get to your spots and get to where your bread is butter.
Yeah, and the key thing for him would be to stay aggressive. Uh,
Yeah.
and he's done a much better job of it this season of not being as um I mean, just not second guessing as much like he did his freshman and even last year before his injury. There would be a times where you could see he was kind of indecisive with what he should do whenever defenses would guard him, and he's done a much better job of not doing that this year, and that's going to be something that might require him to just continue to be aggressive, getting to spots, or just setting up his teammates like he was really able to do in this game. At the end of the day, just take what the defense gives you. They're going to live with him taking those shots and he's shooting it at a 30-40% clip. Like, I think Houston will take that any day, any night.
And you have to. And when he's on the floor, whether it's with LJ or Emmanuel or Milos, I mean, who would you want to beat you from three? You're not going to leave LJ. You're not going to leave Emmanuel. And so that I can understand that concept with Terrence. It's just that, like you said, believing, playing with confidence, and just being consistent. I think he has it in him, and I love just watching him today. Like you said earlier, having good all around game. It was a prolific scorer, but you look at his impact on the game, and who Coach Sampson preaches. How can you impact winning? He did that with blocks, get deflections, getting steals, getting rebounds, all around, and he added 10 points. And so that's what you can want from a player who's a role player right now on this team. So if he could fulfill his role and be a star in his role, and when the opportunities comes, he gets it going. You know, Coach Sampson, one of the things that make him as good as he is if you have it going, he'll feed you and let you keep rolling. He'll let you cook.
Yeah, most definitely. One of the last things I want to bring up as we wind things down, Houston unveiled their version of the blue jerseys or Houston blue jerseys. So I'm gonna put it on the screen there, and I gotta get your thoughts on these.
Now I got your attention.
So those are the
Fire.
U of H men's basketball Houston blue jerseys. And listen, whenever they put that link for those jerseys to sell, they're gonna sell out, I would
Hmm.
say, instantly. But yeah, I agree. They look real nice. They look fire. They will wear them on February 1st, which is going to be
Against
not
Texas
this
Tech.
Saturday, but yep, a week from this Saturday when they play Texas Tech at home, the next home game for the Cougars. Fun fact: that basketball that they had in the video, according to Chris Baldwin of Paper City Magazine, he tweeted this out a few minutes ago. But Lauren Sampson handmade that basketball, added all the different um I don't know if you could call it
But
the
bedazzles.
diamonds. Yeah,
Yeah.
she handmade that, which is pretty awesome. They went all out to unveil something that the fans have been asking for, really since the football team unveiled their version at the beginning of last season. So we finally get to see it in fruition. Yeah, you said it perfect, like straight fire. Yeah, Crabtree agrees
Right, right.
100%. Whenever they start selling them, yeah, they're gonna sell out. So great job by the Houston marketing department. And yeah, Crabtree can't lose in
Yeah,
those.
agreed. You
Texas,
can't.
and that's a great point against a Texas Tech team that shoot anytime you have to play against Tech, it's going to be a good game, and it's going to be a game that you want to come out on top. Final point about EI Crabtree. He says back-to-back ranked conference road games coming up. We mentioned they have to play 12th ranked Kansas on Saturday. That game will be a 5:30 p.m. Central tip-off from Allen Fieldhouse. Obviously, that's going to be a tough environment. Houston trying to get to atone for their loss there a year ago, and then they follow that up with a trip to West Virginia, 23rd ranked West Virginia. Obviously, Cougars just saw the Mountaineers not too long ago, but having to play on the road is going to be a different environment. This is easily, most definitely, when it comes to conference, it's their hardest stretch of the season so far up to this point for Houston, and these are some two really good teams that they're going to be tested.
Yep, gonna be tested, but those jerseys are straight fire, man. I mean, hey, they are fire. And what a better way to wear them than against Tech. I mean, you can't wear the black ones. You gotta bring out the blue, and that has to be our ultimate color. Get away from those black jerseys. They're too much like Tech. I love it. I love it. Can't wait. I gotta get me one. As soon as the link goes out, I will be getting one. And I love it. But to Crabtree's point, back to back road conference games, he said they'll be happy if we go 1-1. I expect them. I want to say because it's tough to play in Kansas. I went to that game last year in Allen Fieldhouse, and saw the crowd and saw that atmosphere. It's tough, but the way that Kansas is looking, they're definitely beatable. But they're going to be pumped and ready to play against Houston. I mean, they're going to be ready to play, and West Virginia is not going to be no slouch either. And so I'm excited. Good, tough competition only prepares Houston for what's to come down the road. It's getting ready for the conference tournament and even the big dance. But those jerseys are tough, man. I cannot wait to see them on the court. Yeah, and they're fire. I mean, they're simply put, they're fire. I mean, it has to be Houston's alternate color. Has to be.
Yep. I mean, there's not really much to say. Like you say, I mean, we're both going to be whenever that link goes up, trying to get our own versions of the Houston blue jersey. Um, yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see. I'm excited to see what Houston looks like on the road in Kansas. Um, Obviously, a lot of fans are, and um, hopefully it's another situation where it's a close competitive game, and we kind of have to see where Houston goes down the stretch and how they execute another late game crunch we saw against UCF. Houston went to Jawan Roberts, who delivered, and he had a really solid performance against the Knights. I'd be curious to see how Houston does in another similar situation. And if I had to bet, I would say at least one of these next two games, Houston will find themselves in that position again. So again, at the end of the day, all these things are just continuing to build for March, and yes, for the Big 12 tournament, but obviously the big one in the NCAA tournament. Dayon, one thing that I want to kind of start adding to our shows is a play of the game. And in this game, I think there's a lot of different plays we could pick, but I think we're going to go with the flashy Malik Wilson dunk that he
Oh,
had So let's see. This is the first time that we're doing this. This is the play of the game. According to we gotta see. We could have a sponsor. We could have a catchy name. The play of the game between Houston and Utah belongs to.
There's a steal from Wilson. Wilson, thank you.
He had the LeBron-esque dunk on that one, threw the hammer down, like the tweet said. But that's got to be the play of the game today. Malik Wilson had a really solid outing against the Utes.
Yeah, and I love that concept. I mean, the Let's Rage play of the game, like you said, have a potential sponsor for that, or even a fan. If you want to sponsor it, you want it to be your play of the game, contact us, let us know. But that's something we will be implementing, and that's a great idea by Andy. I love it. And what a dunk by Malik. I mean, just cocked it back, and that was impressive.
Threw it down. That being said, that's pretty much going to do it for today's edition of Let's Rage Coogs. We hope everybody in the Houston area continues to stay warm. There's still some snow on the ground, believe it or not, 2 days after it fell, and it'll probably stay until at least, I would say, tomorrow afternoon. So make sure that you guys are staying warm and stay off the ice if you guys have to drive overnight. Once again, the final score from the Fertitta Center: the 7th-ranked Houston Cougars come out on top over Utah, 70-36. Milo Zuzan led all scorers with 14 points. LJ Crown not too far behind with 13. Jawan Roberts had 11 points, 4 rebounds. Terrence Arsenal rounded up the group with 10 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, 4 blocks himself. Like I said, the Houston Cougars will return to action on Saturday evening at 5:30 p.m. Central Time from Allen Fieldhouse against Kansas. And with the win, Houston improved to 15-3 overall. They have now won 11 in a row, and they are 7-0 in conference play. So, two heavyweights match up in Kansas this Saturday. Once again, for every person that's commented, big thank you to you guys. Big thank you to Steve Saxenian and Star Pizza, Mike and Jennifer Pittman for being today's sponsors. And Dayon, I'll toss it over to you. Any final thoughts? And take it away. Close us out.
Of course, always thanking you for our supporters and people who stuck with us through another Let's Race Cool show. Whether you commented or didn't comment, and we appreciate you for taking time out your night to rage with us after another Houston victory. Hopefully, let's do it again after on the road against Kansas. And it's something about those big wins. Houston fans really come and rage with us. So hopefully, let's have another party here, a virtual party after Houston goes to Allen Fieldhouse and gets a win on the road. It'd be a hard fought win, and I can't wait to watch the game. Love those Houston Blue jerseys. Shout out to the entire faculty, or however they put it together, whether it's the AD, everyone involved for actually listening to the fans, listening to the supporters, and actually making those come into fruition. Now the next step, put them on sale, and I guarantee you'll see Houston continue to sell out with merchandise. But from us, we appreciate it again. Thank our sponsors, the Saxenian Family, Start Pizza, and as always, go Cougs.